Hey, okay. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey. So what's happening?
It's the week before, a few days before Comic-Con, so everyone's,
I've heard of it.
yeah.
Oh my God. I won't be there. They'll have to get along without me.
Well, it has been since 2011 since we last heard you as Pooh Bear and Tigger. How easy was it for you to jump back into the voices of and the characteristics?
Well, it was terribly difficult. Oh wait, no, it wasn't. No, it's like yesterday. It's just, I think it's in my DNA now. Pooh and Tigger are never far away, for me anyway. Yeah, I live in the 100-acre wood.
Is it like that for all the characters you do, or is this something about these that really
Well,
stick with
these guys are extremely special. Everybody said, well, I do a lot of characters. Well, who's your favorite? Who's your all-time favorite? And I go, well, first of all, I don't have a, but if I had two, it would be Pooh and Tigger. They're kind of in their own class, their own class, their own category. They're on their own shelf, and everybody else isn't. So yeah, that was a good answer.
In your opinion,
Yeah, right.
what makes these characters so timeless?
Well, they're not tied to a fad. They're not necessarily on skateboards or hoverboards, and there are no pogs involved. They're not flipping the bottle. There's nothing. They're kind of evergreen. They came from literature back in the 20s when he first wrote the bedtime stories by Christopher Robin, and they just have had that timeless quality. It pulls you right back to your childhood, and there's no real fad involved in that type of thing. It's timeless, I think, for everybody. You could be 8 or 88, and it pulls you back to your childhood. It's that sweet time.
The other actors, the other voice actors seem to shuffle around in each of these Pooh Bear projects. To what do you think you owe your longevity in these two roles?
Well, I blackmail.
Yeah.
Just have the goods on everyone. No, I don't know. I guess luck of the draw, and I'm certainly passionate for it. It matters to me a lot. Maybe that shows. I always say, gosh, 1939, Wizard of Oz, Sleeping Beauty came out, and Gone with the Wind, and those could probably be released now and be pretty successful. So you just have to care, and I do. I don't take myself seriously, but I take the work seriously, and God willing, it shows, and we all get to hang out and talk about it now.
What about this film maybe challenged you in a different way when you're performing these characters than other ones where you've performed this too?
Well, it was interesting. First, the way we approached it is we recorded the whole movie, or my part up front, and then they took that to the set to play live with Ewan and Haley and the gang. And so that was interesting, up front. It gave them something to act to and react to, because acting's reacting, and then we got it back and changed it up all over again. So it was kind of looping. A lot of people will see an actor looping before a soundstage, it'll be an animated character, and everybody thinks that's how every single cartoon is made, but it's not, because you can't draw comedic timing, or in this case, computer animate comedic timing. But once you hear it, then you can do it. So it's the process is a little different. But this one was the folks there with poor Ewan, God bless him. I mean, sitting there talking to a gray lump of semi-doll shaped Pooh. He was acting, he was earning his money. And just various puppeteers and 14 people standing around pretending they're not there. So that was he had a bigger job than me. And then from there it was just kind of matching the lip flap. Okay, did we get that hoo-hoo right? Okay, So a bit challenging in that regard, but other than that, it was the same characters, a little more pulled back, I think. Less bombastic, because it's not really animation. But
How closely did you work with Mark Forster, if at all?
oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
He was. Yeah.
I'm not
He
sure.
was the ringmaster.
If I remember correctly, I don't think he's done anything that sort of demanded this kind of skill set. What was that sort of collaboration like?
Oh, it was great. He's very gentle. He's very wise. he's got a sort of a Zen-like approach too. He's got a Pooh-like approach too, and he, you know, he wanted to, you know, treat it with great reverence and respect to, you know, the property, and you know, I think that just the whole idea, you know, you can't let it be lampoony, you know, you can't let it be farcical or absurd, and he really walked the line of nostalgia and you know, bringing you into Christopher's world that wasn't in the 100 Acre Wood anymore, you know, and you had to kind of be serious, but at the same time get him back in the 100 Acre Wood, you know, mentally, spiritually, and it's a good place to be. You did a great job.
Is voice acting easier now with technology than it was when you started? Has the skill changed at all, or is it the same?
No, I think it'd be the same. You know, I miss doing things with the whole cast. We don't seem to do that very much anymore. But I like it when we do, you know, and get that interaction, get that energy.
What are the big differences?
Well, that's a big one. You know, when you fly solo, when you're doing it all by yourself. I've done multiple characters and things, so I tend to talk to myself. I guess I'm used to it. We're schizophrenic, and we are too. So we don't mind it. Did that answer the question? I can't tell. I don't know.
Did you have that happen this time? Were you doing Pooh and Tigger at the same time?
No, not necessarily. The way I used to, but the way we do it now is I like to do all the Pooh stuff, because Tigger's slightly more gruff. They don't sound alike, but they're, you know, Tigger's just a little bit more gruff, so I get Pooh out of the way first.
The film is based on like a children's story. The previous movies have been about just for children and adults who nostalgia. But this film centers around like fans who grew up with it.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like the audience to take on the story, since we've seen many renditions as well?
What would I like them to?
What would you like the audience to take from this story?
Oh, well, gosh, go back to the 100 Acre Wood, wherever that is in your life. You know, because Christopher's problem is he got caught up in the workaday world, and it was taken from the timeline. I mean, he went through World War II and everything, and came back, had to get a job, and the whole bit, and he lost touch with his inner child, and who was there to save him. And so I think there's a little lesson in there for all of us. You know, you don't want to take it all that seriously. You know, there's a line in there that Haley, you know, his wife says, well, Christopher, this is your life, and it's happening right now. It's happening right around you, and it doesn't have anything to do with the time card you punch. You know, and so that's not bad.
I'm curious about the animation of the film, but also your history with animation. Your involvement, obviously, you know, you're a voice talent. So how has that changed throughout the years? Like having to go from like hand-drawn animation to kind of like computer-generated animation.
Well, you know, for us, I don't think it not much of a difference. You know, you know, because you know, we recorded. You know, every show is recorded like a radio drama, if you will. You know, and you know, they take that and then they animate from there to you know, as to what medium they use. My work's done by the time they get there. You know, so that it probably stays the same. You know, there's different trends that are out there nowadays. I mean, you know, I don't think anybody's going to ever be nostalgic for the good old days. Remember when they, you know, had everybody belched and had all these bodily functions and cartoons. You know, that's different. There was less of that when I started, but I don't think anybody will miss that if it goes away.
Sort of playing off of what Todd was saying earlier, was there something that sort of challenged your acting muscle with this versus maybe some of the traditional animated features?
Well, it was, I always had to pull back a little bit, because you're used to being a little more boisterous. And this was more of a Zen Pooh. You know, he was a little calmer. I always say he looks at the world through honey-colored glasses.
I love that.
Sometimes those glasses are at the circus, and sometimes they're calmer, sitting around the dinner table or whatever, you know. But it was just a less boisterous overall thing. And it's set in the 40s. It's a time period. It's a period piece, which is an odd thing to say. I just realized that. How could that be?
My bad. I didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Cummings. But just curious. I think the taste that kids have nowadays is a lot different than it was, let's say, 30, 40 years ago. Do you think Pooh and the gang actually have that same pull on them, or do you guys feel like your client fan base is more nostalgic adults than anything trying to introduce their kids to it? Because I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, especially with animation, it's like an ever-evolving industry.
Yeah.
Do you think you guys still get that same punch?
Well, I think so. I mean, kids, you know, I've done different conventions here and there, and boy, you know, it's, I don't know if it's the 100 Acre Wood Gang, you know, Pooh and Tigger and the gang, but, you know, they're not, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, they're not really attached to a fad. It's not like they're Transformers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if robots who turn into a lunchbox go out of style, Pooh and the
Never.
gang will still be there. You know what I mean? And so there's a timeless quality to it, and it's got enough appeal for kids, and it's you know, this definitely has enough appeal for kids and adults. This is, you know, the old line, well, from 8 to 80, all ages will enjoy it. Well, this one is actually true.
So these, these characters are really nostalgic for a lot of people, and I know when the first teaser came out, a lot of people were posting about how they were sobbing through it. Were there moments when you were recording that it really got to you?
Yeah, I'm not that good an actor. It just, it's like, oh, this is really sweet. Damn, oh, okay, God, ooh, okay. Next question, you know, it's like, yeah, it was good stuff. You know, you could tell.
Well, do you have to juggle sort of a sense of nostalgia with a sense of performance? I mean, to
No,
sort of,
no, I don't. I'm a little bit too obtuse. So, no, so far so good.
Do you have a different approach when you're voicing an original character versus iconic characters like Pooh and Tigger? As an
Well,
actor,
yes
do
and
you-
no. I think, you know, when you take over one that's been there, you know, job one is to sound like the character. You know, if he sneezes or snores or hiccups, it's got to sound like that character. Oh, was that Tigger hiccuping? You know, that type of thing. So you have to do that. And then at that point, you're an actor. You stay in character for this character, for Pooh or Tigger or whoever it may be. You know, but different ones like Darkwing or, I don't know, Ray, Princess and the Frog. You still, again, you know, you're still sounding like the original character. That just, in that case, it just so happened to be me or you or you know, whoever it was. So you're kind of in character, and people say, well, how do you keep them apart? And I've thought about it, and I at first I thought, well, I don't really have an answer for how do you tell all these characters apart. But I think it's kind of like the way you can tell apart Silent Night from, you know, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. It's a different song. It's a different, or the Star Spangled. But how do you tell songs apart? That's how.
The character
You know,
brings.
yeah. I think that's the best way to put that.
when you talked about the idea of doing all of one character's performance at the
Mhm.
same time, and you were talking specifically about how Tigger is more gruff.
Mhm.
Do you look at, when you're recording, I mean, is it a matter of I'm staying in character in a sort of immersive way, or is it literally a more sort of a vocal challenge that you're facing when you're doing that?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Maybe both. Yeah. You know, you're in a mindset. That's for sure. That's for sure. I've seen. When we first started doing it, I tended to stand a lot, and I saw still pictures of me behind the mic, and I go, oh wow, that's Winnie the Pooh, and then because I'll do it for you. You know, I'd be standing there, and here's Pooh recording. And here's Tigger recording. And so I guess it's both. It's interesting, weird body language, you know.
Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with Disney? I mean, you've been with them for so many years over so many different projects, and or just your overall experience and stuff.
It's great. You know, I'm happy as I could be. You know, the first job I got was Lion in Dumbo Circus in 1980, 85. I think it was 85. And then the first movie I did was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, another famous Disney movie. So you know, and I grew up. I mean, I don't have my shirt anymore, but I've got the picture of me with my Mouseketeer shirt on, you know, waiting for Annette. And you know, and I had my Zorro hat, and I still have my Davy Crockett hat from the 50s. And I don't know. I just think I've often said that Disney, Anna, you know, all the trivia and all the world of Disney and the world of America are just about this. They're woven together into the same fabric. So it feels like, that's why I love coming here to the lot, you know, and some of the older, you know, you're on Dopey Drive, for crying out loud. Come on, you gotta love that, you know?
Well, Winnie the Pooh has the best quotes, the best stories, and the lessons.
Yes, he does.
Lots
Thank
of
you.
life lessons. And then you've been this for many years, so what has Winnie the Pooh taught you? Like, has Winnie the Pooh taught you anything throughout the whole session?
To save your honey for a rainy day. Gosh, I don't know, probably calmed me down a little bit. Kept me out of trouble. Come on, you're Winnie the Pooh, straighten up, fly right, okay. You know, so, yeah.
I've heard you're a master impressionist too, that you've done voices of Orson Welles,
yeah.
you can do James Cagney. Is there somebody from like real life cinema history you like
Is there
doing
who?
voices
Is
for?
there who? What,
Like just like impersonating people?
Oh gosh, I don't know. You know, I usually, you know, whenever you do an impression, it has to be that person. So, you know, I really never considered myself an impressionist, but other people have. So okay, you know, I jokingly said I'm a stunt singer. I've sung for Jeremy Irons, Danny DeVito. I was Janis Joplin once.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, only because Tress MacNeille had a sore throat and we were doing Animaniacs, and they used to do Animaniacs. There was the one where Slappy Squirrel was back in the '60s, went out for 3 days of peace, love, and something in the countryside, and she woke up at Woodstock. And I was bad Joe Cocker, I was bad Roger Daltrey, and you know, what would you do with you know, and Tress MacNeille was going to be Janis Joplin, and we only did like 3 or 4 notes of non-songs, just enough to make it. So was that the Who? Was that Joe Cocker? Was that? And she had a sore throat. She goes, "Oh, my throat sore. Why doesn't Jimmy do it? Just make Jimmy be Janis Joplin." I go, yeah, okay. And here's my line. What is it?
And how do you take care of your voice, since that is your bread and butter?
I can't talk. I just do it.
Do you go mute before
No, I don't
you
know.
have to-
Like I said, I never smoked, or I never. You know, they say like Tom Waits has got the whiskey and Marlboro voice. Well, I never did much of either. You know, none at all.
Do you drink tea with honey? There you go.
This is really honey.
Well, what have you learned from creating voices that, like, you were able to apply when you are called upon to do an impersonation? I mean, what for a person who's trying to figure out how to do the right kind of impersonation?
Well,
of something?
the sound. Think of the sound first. That's the best thing I could tell you. You know, do an impression or something. If it's that inclusive that, you know, is that Orson Welles burping? You know, I mean, you know, get the sound of it first, and then take it from there. Yeah.
So I interviewed a few voice actors who told me that they would prefer the anonymity of being a voice actor and being able to walk around without being bothered. Do you feel like now that with everything being viral and everyone's knowing each other's business, do you prefer that anonymity like now versus then?
Yeah, it's weird. I could tell that people, because at some time I'll you know, when I'll do something like an Entertainment Tonight or something, or, you know, and then like for 3 months I'm facially famous. And people sit there. They're trying to figure out where they know me from. And then, you know, were you this? And I go, no. And oh God, you're Winnie the Pooh. Oh God. Okay. You know, it's a weird thing. So, you know, it's interesting. I'm okay with it. I used to, when I was a kid, I wanted to be facially famous, and then I joke around and say, well, anybody could win an Oscar or an Emmy if they use their face. You know, but I don't mind it. You know, my friend calls me a stealth celebrity. So, okay, I'll take it.
What do you enjoy about being a voiceover artist?
Well, I'll tell you, it's the stuff that used to get me kicked out of class, and now it's kind of cool. You know, doing dolphin sounds, or we don't have dolphins, St. Columba, Mr. Cummings. You know, they do now though. So it's you know, it's just a lot of fun. Like I say, it's the stuff that you know, I've played Monopoly and entertained my friends and family with for years, just, you know, coming up with goofy voices and everything. And turns out that, you know, I remember thinking when I was maybe like 4 or 5, Jack Benny had a show, and Mel Blanc was on it on camera. He was one of the regulars on his show, and you know, he did Bugs Bunny and Taz and Daffy and all those. But that's, see this guy, he's the guy who does all voices of all those characters you like to watch on Saturday morning. And I thought, well, he's not getting into trouble, so I'll be him. So I'm him. Sorta.
So,
Mel Light.
So everyone always asks, like, what's your favorite character to voice and whatnot. So what was the most difficult character for you to ever voice?
Well, Taz is the most difficult still.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I say difficult, that's not really right. It's just the most wear and tear. It's not difficult per se, you know, but it's, cause I just do it. Yeah. When we did the Tasmania show, we did like 90-some shows, and I said, can we do these on Friday afternoon, you know, rather than Monday morning, you know, have the weekend off. He's like the anti-Pooh.
Yeah.
So.
This
Time for
world-
one last question?
This world seems to be so lacking in empathy and compassion these days, and there's a lot of films.
I don't even care about it.
There's a lot of films that are sort of addressing it these days, with Mr. Rogers' documentary, and possibly now this. What do you think Pooh Bear would say to people who are sort of searching for this, like, sort of niceness in the world?
Well, I think they need to see the world through honey-colored glasses. And keep on bouncing.
I love it.
Do you have any advice for kids who have an interest in doing like impressions or doing what you do?
Sure. Don't do impressions of the principal or your teacher where they can hear you. And say your prayers, take your vitamins, and all that normal parent sort of sounding stuff. But honestly, when I was a kid, I was in a million plays, you know, and I'd be 9 or 10 years old, and I didn't want to be the little prince. I wanted to be the hermit or the ogre or the, you know, the sorcerer or something, you know, something that was a little more fun. And I think I was accidentally doing sort of research for the career that I ended up doing, you know, and expanded. And you know, I would do like puppet shows as a kid, or you know, or for my kids even, you know, and go to community theaters. And I was always in bands too, you know, singing, and I still sing all the time. You know, we talked about it earlier. I'm a stunt singer or something, and that's just a lot of fun. And you know, if you love it, just the best thing advice that I've ever given I've had nephews that actually followed this, and they're successful guys. Is just make a list of stuff. What would I tell kids? This is what I tell kids. Make a list of about 5 or 10 things that you would do all day long for free because you love them so much. And then do a few of those so well that they'll pay you. Do that. But don't tell anybody. Just tell everyone.
You don't need more competition.
That's right. No. I mean, my nephews are both executive chefs because they like to cook. So yeah, it works. And what are you gonna be? Very good.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.